Going to be fielded by Lorenzo Neal at the 25. Pitches it back to Wycheck. He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
30,
He's got
40,
something.
50,
He's got it.
40,
He's got it.
20, 10.
He's got it.
End zone. Touchdown Titans. There are no flags on the field. It's a miracle. Tennessee has pulled it.
To the 20, to the 10, he's all the way home! Holy moly! Man, woman, and child did that. Put him in the aisle. Johnny the Jet Rogers just tore them loose from their shoes.
Hey, somebody has run out on the field. Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40.
And Chris Davis takes it in the back of the end zone. He'll run it out to the 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the missed field goal back.
It's First and 10, presented by Nosebleed Knowledge. Here's your host, Shane Miller. Welcome back to week 2 of First and 10. Glad to have you guys back on here. We're having a lot of fun doing this podcast. Here with your hosts, myself, Shane Miller, and Toby Todd, a.k.a. the Ghetto Grocery Bag. How's it going, Toby?
What's up, what's up? It's going fantastic.
Alrighty, this week we're going to talk a little AFC West preview. We'll talk about all the teams from the AFC West, start with the Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, and then finishing off with the Raiders. Then we'll get into a little news coming out of Northwest Missouri State, the school Toby and I attend, some news coming out of there, going to the NFL. And then we'll break down the running backs from our favorite teams, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, Nebraska Cornhuskers, and the Michigan Wolverines. Then we'll finish it off talking about college football running backs. So we'll give you our top 10. Then we'll finish it off talking about some overrated and underrated running backs coming out of the NCAA. So Toby's our AFC West guy. This is his week to be biased. Toby, starting off with the Broncos, team you hate. What's something you think is going to be positive for the Broncos? We'll get the hard part out of the way for you.
Yeah, well, like you said, hopefully nothing is positive for them. I think always a positive when you're talking about Denver is the edge rushers.
Yeah.
But I think aside from, Von Miller, who's obviously great, I'm looking at Chris Harris. This is now his defensive backfield on his own. Aqib Talib gone to Los Angeles. Chris Harris is a lockdown cornerback. Quarterbacks know better than to throw it at Chris Harris. Usually against the Broncos, you try to play it into the slot or hope Aqib Talib, would try to jump a route.
Yeah.
And you hit something over the top. Chris Harris is a cover cornerback. Really lockdown player. He doesn't get a whole lot of interceptions, but that's because the ball doesn't come his way very often. I think Harris Island is going to be real and alive for that Broncos team. Quarterbacks aren't going to have the time to make a whole lot of reads. So effectively, if Chris Harris Jr. continues to play the way he has these past 2-3 seasons, the Broncos could really take away a lot of number one receivers, a lot of number one options.
You mentioned it. Quarterbacks aren't going to have a lot of time to get the ball off, especially with the pickup of Bradley Chubb. I mean, that's what everybody in Denver is looking forward to, getting the number one pass rusher out of North Carolina State. But him and Von Miller is going to be a dynamic duo coming at you. If I'm in the AFC West, that is my biggest fear this season, is having to face not only Von Miller again, but also Bradley Chubb, who's looking to be his young prodigy. Did you see Von Miller's reaction when Bradley Chubb was drafted?
Yeah,
Typical
he loved
Von
it.
Miller, yeah. He was super pumped.
Yeah, he's not getting double-teamed anymore, so.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a big help for him.
Well, he still might, but then Bradley Chubb will be right there, so.
Yeah, no, there's not much you can do with both of them coming at you. What's one thing that you think the Denver Broncos should be wary of coming into this next season?
I just think, you got rid of Trevor Siemian, so congratulations to the Broncos for getting rid of Siemian as your quarterback. But, you went out, you got Case Keenum, and of a lot of those free agent quarterbacks, you thought you were going to get Kirk Cousins. Then I know Denver was heavy on Baker Mayfield in the draft. They didn't get him either, didn't get a quarterback in the draft. They settled for Case Keenum, and he had a great year last year. Case Keenum threw for 22 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, completed 67% of his passes in Minnesota. But just a year before that, he was playing in Los Angeles, and he completed 60% of passes, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So it's really a mixed bag. Like, what Case Keenum are you going to get? Mm-hmm. Is the system that Denver plays going to benefit Case Keenum as well as they did in Minnesota? I know Minnesota has Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, who are two really, really talented NFL receivers. I know he'll be throwing to Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And I don't know if last season for those guys was on poor quarterback play from Simeon, but there was a sharp decline in numbers for those two guys. Sure. I think you're just weary of the kind of game you're going to get out of Case Keenum.
Yeah, no, I agree. And all of their quarterbacks are the same. I think like you said, they got rid of Trevor Siemian, but then they have 3 Trevor Siemians to replace him. Like, honestly, if you took Case Keenum's jersey and put it on Paxton Lynch or Chad Kelly, like, I don't think you would notice a difference in any of their playing style. They're very just kind of boring, white bread, underachieving quarterbacks who Case Keenum had a great season last year, but that was out of nowhere. No one saw it coming. Everyone really underestimated him, so they played worse to him. Now they're like, all right, if we underestimate him, he can do something. They're definitely not going to make that mistake again, and you're going to see similar results to when he was in LA and was just a garbage quarterback. So I don't know. It's not going to. I don't think their quarterback situation got any better or necessarily any worse. It's just kind of the same with Trevor Siemian. So I think they should try to pick up a quarterback after they drafted Bradley Chubb, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's something to look forward to for next season. We talked about quarterbacks last week. I think, a guy like Drew Lock will be there.
Yeah.
Denver, I think after this season, some of those teams that got these free agent quarterbacks are going to be looking elsewhere for quarterbacks come next year's draft.
Yeah.
So I think the Broncos probably one of those teams. But you can't pass on Chubb, though.
No, you
right
can't.
There.
I think that was a good call.
No.
Like we talked about last week, you got to take the best athlete that's available. So Bradley Chubb is definitely that best athlete. Another good pickup I thought they had, though, was Troy Fumagalli from Wisconsin, the tight end. They do have Jake Butt right now from Michigan. That's your dude. But as you know, last year he was pretty injury prone, wasn't he?
Yeah, he tore his ACL in that Orange Bowl against Florida State. He couldn't play all last season. And Denver, yeah, I agree with you. Fumagalli comes in, and if he's not getting playing time right away, he's going to be a guy that fills in on special teams, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And, they lost Virgil Green in the offseason too, who was their starting tight end last year. I think they still have Hireman. They basically just have a whole stable of Big Ten tight ends ready to go. And I think Fumagalli is one of the more talented pass catchers of the group.
Yeah, I do too. I was looking at his stats from last season. He had 46 receptions for 547 yards and 4 touchdowns. So especially from a tight end in the Big Ten where it's like run, punt, run, punt, run. Like there's not a lot of passing in the Big Ten like you see in the Big 12 or anything. That's pretty impressive coming up from the tight end position. He's definitely one of their favorite targets to throw to. But I still think Jake Butt, wherever he's at with his recovery, hopefully he's back to 100%. But I think he was a better tight end in college. So I think Fumagalli will have to spend at least 1 year or so kind of playing a backup to him. But I think he's a good role player. He'll be able to he'll be comfortable behind Butt, standing behind Butt, And
yeah.
That's the most immature joke we'll make on this show.
I did offensively all around in that draft. They kind of got a player for each position in the draft. They got Sutton, the receiver. I really, really, especially now that they lost C.J. Anderson, I really like the Rolls-Royce pick, Royce Freeman from Oregon. They got him in the 3rd round because he's a guy played 4 years in college. He didn't play an NFL style, but he's an NFL style running back. I think he'll probably come in and just like we talked about last week, Darius Geis for the Redskins. He'll be a guy that wasn't drafted 1st round, but will likely start on his team. So,
yeah, you like to see guys like that. You kind of come in with a chip on their shoulder, looking to make something happen.
Absolutely.
How do you think their free agency went? They lost Aqib Talib in the free agency, which you hate to see a team lose a guy like that, but they did make some moves picking guys up.
Yeah, I think free agent-wise, the Broncos, the fans probably thought they had it made because they got rid of Simeon. They brought in a guy who went to the NFC Championship at quarterback. I think that this offseason for them wasn't necessarily a disaster because of the draft. The draft really bolstered them a lot. I think they drafted tremendously. But yeah, like you said, losing Talib, losing a guy like C.J. Anderson, losing your starting tight end, losing your 3rd option receiver, Benny Fowler. There's a lot of areas on that Broncos team where you saw them lose players. You said, okay, they didn't replace these guys very well with
Yeah.
Veteran free agents. I think the one pickup that I'm actually really excited to see is the punter,
Marquette King.
Marquette King, because he's got a massive leg, and he's going to be putting in the best place for all special teamers to go. There'll probably be some punts. I would not be surprised to see some fly 75 yards in the air.
I would not either. With that thin air up in Denver, yeah, no, I could definitely see that happening. Plus, he's like the most electric punter in the NFL right now. It's like since Pat McAfee, honestly.
Yeah, once you go 3 and out, 3rd and 10 off 3 straight incomplete passes from Keenum.
Yeah.
They're Marquette King to try to fake a punt.
That would be nice because he played receiver in college, didn't he? Or something. He's got speed.
He's an athlete.
Yeah.
He's an athlete, yeah.
He's got real speed. I think I'd like to see some fake punts from him. I mean, I think he's the guy who can run it. And having him on your team at special teams, that's a big plus because the other team has to respect that fact that they can run a fake really effectively with Marquette King. So you can't just throw out scrubs, on your punt return because you don't think you're just sure they're going to punt it. They kind of have that edge of the element of surprise with them too.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's, for as good of an athlete as he is, I think that a lot of the teams in his own division they take notice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that him being back there to punt the football away kind of inspires some other teams to put in their best athletes to return kicks because we see a lot of great kick returners like Travis Benjamin for the Chargers. Our boy Tyreek Hill from the Chiefs returned a few punts for touchdowns on him.
Yeah.
I think the pickup here, especially to get him from Oakland, I'm pretty excited for those games.
Yeah,
because
great.
I feel like Denver will try to fake some punts on Oakland.
Oh, for sure.
Just for Marquette King to get back at him.
I could see Marquette King calling his own audibles and calling fakes. Like, Denver's coach calling a punt. He just gets in the hose like, no, screw that. We're running this up their ass. Just to get back at Oakland.
Right. Punters with swagger for the brand.
For sure. Another notable offseason loss I saw for Denver, you kind of touched on a little bit, with C.J. Anderson. It really didn't make a ton of headlines when he was released by the Broncos. He's not like your super flashy running back, but he's super consistent. He averaged 4.1 yards per attempt last year, which, as you know, is like the perfect amount of yards to gain on every play. If you gain 4 yards every play, you score. But he also rushed for over 1,000 yards last season. So he's obviously one of those guys who you can depend on and you can trust to get yards when you need it. But he's not one of those like breakaway 80-yard touchdown runs like you see from like guys like Kareem Hunt in Kansas City or something like that. But I don't know. I think it's going to hurt him because they really didn't make it up anywhere with the running backs in the draft or in free agency. Yeah.
No, C.J. Anderson he was probably honestly the best player they had on offense last year. If they needed, like you said, they needed anybody to go to, it was more effective to put the ball in C.J. Anderson's hands or have C.J. Anderson catch a pass than it was to rely on the downfield passing of Simeon or whoever they had at quarterback that week. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's a big loss for Denver. I think it's a bigger gain for Carolina.
Yeah.
Where he ended up, because you talk about a guy who's a veteran, consistent, true pro, who can help McCaffrey sort of develop further. Like that, I thought that was a tremendous pickup for the Panthers.
Yeah, I agree. What did you have him finishing at?
I don't see the Broncos being real good this year. I had them at 6-10. I have them finishing last in the division. I think the rest of the division is going to be all right. So 6-10, it's not terrible, but I've got them at last place in the division.
Yeah, I had the exact same. I had them 6-10, then 4th in the AFC West. So hopefully for Broncos fans, next year's draft and offseason goes a little better than this year's did.
Or not. No,
that's fine with me. With them
you can
not
stay
doing.
bad.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Speaking of being biased, let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Toby, what are you looking forward to coming out of this draft?
Well, our big news came in the draft the previous season when they traded up to draft Pat Mahomes. And I'm really excited to see Pat Mahomes play a full season. It was exciting. Last year, they already had the division locked up. They're going to the postseason. They threw Mahomes in the last game, and that got fans around here excited to see what he could do. In that game, he did pretty well.
He showed some sparks,
284 yards.
Yeah.
He made some tremendous throws. He did have a pick. He was mobile with his legs.
Yeah.
He took some risk that you haven't seen from Kansas City quarterbacks for a long time. So I think the Pat Mahomes era is going to be certainly an exciting one in Kansas City. We'll see how the fans sort of, how they kind of view this process, because it's not going to be right away. Pat Mahomes comes in, he throws for 5,000 yards like he's at Texas Tech or something. No, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve this first season. I hope the Chiefs fans can kind of, deal with that. They can, sort of keep themselves in control when they see Mahomes making some more boneheaded plays.
Yeah.
But I think that Andy Reid just got to, take the protective wheels off and just let him ride, because it'll be a fun season, I think, if he just allows him to play football the way he plays football.
Yeah, I mean, if he lives up to all the hype, this is going to be the most electric quarterback Kansas City's had in decades, honestly. Like, I can't remember any quarterback in Kansas City who could run as well as he can and has just the rocket arm that he has either.
Right. No, I don't think there's been this much excitement for a Kansas City quarterback since Joe Montana came in from the 49ers.
Long time ago.
A long time ago.
Another thing to mention from this year's draft was that you guys drafted no offensive players, all defensive players coming out of the draft. At first, I was a little confused by that, but then I took a look at your offense and realized you probably didn't need any offensive players coming out of the draft. With the pickup of Sammy Watkins at wide receiver, you still have Kareem Hunt and Akeem Hunt in your running back position, and Pat Mahomes. So, how do you feel about your offense this next season?
The offense is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think because you have Kareem Hunt, who showed signs that he can be a great running back in the NFL. I think the offensive line they're not great. They're not a Tennessee or Cowboys offensive line, but they're solid. They can get the job done. I think now they can even relax a little bit more, knowing that they have a guy in the pocket that can, step outside, make the throws. And then the receiving core, I mean, you pair Sammy Watkins with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a real triple threat right there. That is not going to be easy for anybody to cover. So the offense, I think, will be fantastic. The defense, absolutely 100% had to draft primarily defense.
I agree with you completely.
I don't know how many defensive players they lost, but in the last 2 seasons, you lost your best defensive player at every position besides safety, because Eric Berry stayed. Even then, you lost Ron Parker at safety. Your best cornerback, Marcus Peters, is gone. Your best linebacker and the best defensive player and the Chiefs' defense is Derek Thomas. Derek Johnson's gone. Dontari Poe in the last offseason left, who's your best defensive tackle. And one of your best pass rushers for a year, Tom Hawley, gone this offseason. So it's going to be a big switch up on defense. They're just
it's a completely different defense from last season.
Oh, there's been a lot of change. I think there's a lot more change on defense than there has been on any offense.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Across the NFL. But this Chiefs defense is going to be brand new, just a brand new defense.
There was a couple of the free agent ads I saw that actually really stood out to me. One of them being Xavier Williams, the nose tackle from Arizona. Like you said, you lost a lot of your defensive linemen this last season, so you had to pick up some new ones. I think this is a great pickup from you. He's from Kansas City, went to Grandview High School, so that's pretty cool. Hometown kid, probably grew up loving Chiefs, going to Chiefs games, so that's got to be huge for him. He was undrafted. He was undrafted when he came into the league a couple years ago, so he's got that chip on his shoulder, especially coming into a place that he grew up. Like, he wants to work for this team. He wants to work to prove that he should have been drafted a few years ago. He just brings a whole lot of competitiveness and tenacity to the D-line, which I think is going to be huge for you guys. Also, Kendall Fuller from Washington in that trade for Alex Smith. That dude, he's no scrub. Like, he's a very good cornerback coming out. I think that's going to add some experience to your defensive backfield and just a little electricity, honestly, too. The guy, he's got a lot of speed, and he's really good at keeping up with receivers when they break down. So those are the two guys I really liked coming into your defense this year. Yeah,
I agree with both of those. I think Kendall Fuller, he played a lot of slot cornerback last year, and that's kind of where the Chiefs have been hurting, defensive backfield-wise, You had Marcus Peters on the outside. And a lot of Chiefs fans, they were upset with guys like Phillip Gaines for getting beat in the slot and all that. Phillip Gaines is gone now. You replace him with a premier slot defensive back. I think the one addition that I think is going to make a huge difference for the Chiefs was in the draft, they picked up Armani Watts, the safety from Texas A&M.
Yep.
And I watched a lot of A&M games last year. You know, I liked watching all football. We're football guys.
Sure.
And Armani Watts is a ball player. He's always around the ball, whether it's in the air, whether they're, you know, some team's trying to ground and pound A&M. Armani Watts was always around the football. He's a big play guy. He's coming in to replace Ron Parker at safety alongside, you know, potentially the best safety in the league.
Yeah.
Eric Berry, you know, arguably top safety in the league. So there's a lot to learn there. And this is a guy with a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. And, you know, I think of all the guys that the Chiefs had to keep on defense, they kept one guy that you absolutely 100% could not lose. And, you know, hopefully Eric Berry comes back from injury even stronger than he has from all the other challenges that he's had in his career, because he's going to be vital next year.
Another guy that you guys added to your defense was the linebacker Dorian O'Daniel, a linebacker from Clemson. This guy is an absolute stud. I was looking at his stats earlier. He's got 88 total tackles for last season, 51 of those solo tackles. So if you're running like some sort of like nickel defense where you have, you know, the one inside linebacker and the rest defensive backs, you can trust him to make those tackles when he's one-on-one with a running back because he has apparently a lot of experience doing that. And then in 37 assisted tackles, but he also has 11.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. So you can also send him in blitzes and put in different packages with that to put some pressure on the quarterback or just make some tackles in the backfield well. So the guy's got a lot of speed, and I think that's another good addition to your defense because, like I think you mentioned it earlier, you guys lost Derek Johnson this last offseason as well. So I think that's a pretty good replacement for him.
Right. We need all the help on defense we can get right now. Any young, talented guys, just lock onto them and don't let them go anywhere.
And hopefully he'll be there for the long haul, too. You know, you get young guys like that, you can make them, you know, forever Chiefs and keep them on the team as long as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
You'd hate to see them end their career in Oakland like Derek Johnson will likely do. He'll come back and sign with Kansas City.
Yeah.
But that still kind of stings. DJ going to Oakland, so.
Yeah. What do you got for their final record?
I am optimistic. I have them at 10-6. I have them tied with actually the next team we're going to talk about for first place in the division. I think this season there's not going to be that hot start. You're not going to have people through the first 5 games talking about, is this the best team in the NFL?
Yep.
And I think that's good. And I think it's better that people are coming in sort of with lower expectations for the Chiefs this year than last, because every year the fans seem to get their hopes up and they get crushed. Every year they say, all right, we might not do a whole lot this year. You know, I think Chiefs fans are pleasantly surprised. So I'm optimistic. I'm thinking that this can be a division that you can compete in for sure, and a division that the Chiefs could possibly win when it's all said and done.
Yeah. I've got them. I'm a little more optimistic this season than even you are. I got them at 11-5, finishing first in the AFC West. I just think you guys have so many offensive weapons this year that you're going to put up a lot of points. Hopefully your defense can get together and play well because, like you said, it's a whole new defense, you know. So I agree with you. I think the first couple of games are not going to be what you'd hope for, you know, coming out of the beginning of the season. So I kind of see those first few games kind of like a Big 12 game with a lot of scoring on both sides of the ball until your defense starts to get it together. And then hopefully the rest of the season goes really smoothly for you guys, taking first place in the AFC West, and then we'll see what happens in the playoffs next year. Hopefully you can win a playoff game at home.
Just something to get the fans excited about playoff football.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. One thing that I wrote down I'm looking forward to the Los Angeles Chargers was watching them attempt to fill a soccer stadium halfway full again, and then everyone realizing Los Angeles is not a good sports town and moving back to San Diego. So that's something I'm looking forward to watching with them because that was a pretty good storyline last year.
Yeah, you almost felt bad, you know, for the Chargers players. You'd show up to wherever they play. I don't know the stadium's name, but you'd show up there, and half the stands are the opposing team's fans.
Yeah.
Their chants are louder during the games, the Phillip Rivers is facing crowd noise on his own third downs. Like, it's just rough. I agree with you. I don't think Los Angeles is a place where, you know, just football in general is going to thrive. I think a lot of sports in Los Angeles don't really thrive. I think, you know, the Lakers can get away with it because
They've been there forever.
That's the Showtime ticket. You know, They've got all the celebrities go there. So people think it's all, you know, hip, fun to go to those Lakers games. But all in all, I agree. I think Los Angeles is a kind of weak sports town. You know, I think the fans out there, the diehard Chargers fans, were the people of San Diego. So I think that also hurts. There weren't a lot. You wouldn't find a lot of people in Los Angeles cheering for the Chargers. You see a whole bunch of people in LA cheering for the Raiders because it used to be the LA Raiders. Had more success there. So,
did you see when the Chargers made that draft and let a fan come out and announce it? He wouldn't call them the LA Chargers. He still called them the San Diego Chargers. He's like, "You'll always be San Diego for me." Like, I honestly think they're going to move back to San Diego within the next 5 years. I don't see them staying in LA too long.
Yeah, if they get the attendance that they've been getting, then they won't. Which is a shame too, because this is not a bad football team. Like,
no, you feel bad for Phillip Rivers.
Oh yeah, no, those players, even when they were in San Diego, you know, they didn't necessarily get the fan support that you would hope they would. And there's been some really good players to go through that Chargers team.
Yep.
But they're kind of that team where I feel like just around the league, you kind of forget about them because it seems like even their own fans forget they exist for a little bit.
Yeah. What's something you're looking forward to do with the Chargers, though, for next season?
That defensive backfield. Defensive backfield is... I don't know if it's going to be the best in football, but it'll be up there.
You got Jason Verrett.
Jason Verrett's a former Pro Bowler. You know, he missed a lot of time last year. He only got in one game. But he's still a very capable cornerback. They also added a whole bunch of cornerbacks, you know, through either free agency, through undrafted free agents, stuff like that. There's two of them that really stand out: Marcus Edmond, Brandon Fasieson. I don't know. I think it's Fasieson.
Something like that.
But yeah, so really capable undrafted cornerbacks to go along with one of the best cornerbacks in the entire league, and that's Casey Hayward, who 2 straight Pro Bowl seasons, 11 interceptions over the past 2 years. I think he led the NFL in 2016 with 7 interceptions that season. And then, you know, they added Derwin James in the first round of the draft, who, by all accounts that I read, was the best defensive back in the draft, even ahead of Denzel Ward, who went 4th overall to the Browns. So I think that Chargers defensive backfield, there's not a whole lot of groups that can match a lot of the skill positions around the AFC. You look at like Steelers receivers, Patriots receivers, the Chiefs group, even Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, who play in your division, or a Jordy Nelson and Amari Cooper wide receiver duo. The Chargers are making sure that they have their defensive backfield in place to say, okay, we see your receivers, and we'll match you defensive back-wise. I think it's a great move for Los Angeles. I think that's a very exciting group to watch, and that's going to be one of the most fun just position battles next year will be AFC West receivers versus Chargers defensive backs because those groups are all so stacked.
Yeah. One thing, one thing I'm weary of for this next season, I think Phillip Rivers, this is going to be his last couple of years with the Chargers. May even be his last couple of years in the NFL. He's starting to get up there. Him and Eli, are in that same draft, and they're both definitely on the decline of their careers. You know, Phillip Rivers is just perpetually coming back in the fourth quarter. That's what you always see him, like literally almost every game, he's down in the fourth quarter trying to make a comeback. And I don't know if he's got the longevity left to continue to do that. You know, I don't know if he still has the stamina that he did when he was, 2 years out of the draft, a young kid who can run and gun the way he could. I don't know if he's got that left in him anymore. I think he's starting to run out of gas.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too because he's such a great competitor.
Yeah,
and he's got so unlucky in his time in Los Angeles, and that's something that in his time in San Diego, my bad, not Los Angeles, but that's something to always be wary of the Chargers is that this is a team that they're never bad. Like they're never a bad team.
No,
they're just a team that can't finish games.
Yep.
Or can't finish seasons. Notably, I can look back at a few times. There was a year where they started the season 14-0, They were 2 wins away from a perfect regular season. They lost the last 2 regular season games, lost first game of the postseason.
Yeah.
So you win your first 14 games, lose 3 in a row, and get bounced without even making a conference championship. That's insane. That's
embarrassing.
That's super unfortunate. I remember a Halloween game, Monday Night Football in Kansas City. Phillip Rivers literally has to kneel on the football to run the clock out. They fumble the snap. The Chiefs come back and win in overtime.
God, that sucks.
Like,
Cursed, man.
There's one of those teams that they'll always be so close, and it just seems like they can never finish.
Well, how many times have you heard, like, the Chargers are going to be the best team to not make the playoffs? Like, I swear, every other season, some announcer somewhere makes that take, say, the Chargers are the best team not to make the playoffs. Like, what does that really get you in the end,
Yeah, and last season, prime example was last season, they finished with the same record as the Buffalo Bills. They beat Buffalo head-to-head 54-17 or something like that.
Yep.
Just annihilated them. Nathan Peterman threw 4 interceptions in that half.
Yep.
They don't make the playoffs. They finished with the same record as the team that made the playoffs with them. So it's just, how long can you remain unlucky if you're the Chargers? That's something that you're just, because it seems like it's forever.
I can't remember the last time the Chargers were really good, except for that 14-0 season.
Yeah, those forever be one of those unlucky teams. That's something you're just weary of entering every season if you're a Chargers fan.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What do you think of their draft, though?
I liked it. I think they really got a steal first round. After that, it was pretty obvious they were trying to beef up the front seven, which has been lacking for them for quite a while because you have such a great defensive backfield. You need to sort of have a pass rush that'll allow those cornerbacks, to some leeway. They don't have to cover 5-6 seconds every play, cover professional receivers 5-6 seconds every play. Mm-hmm. I really like their pick. They got him in the 3rd round, Justin Jones, a defensive tackle from North Carolina State.
Yep.
He's a weight room monster. He squatted 700 pounds like it was nothing.
Jesus.
He's just a monster of a man. And I think anytime you take a shot on potential like that, you can really like point to something from that player and say, okay, this is what this team liked. This is what they see in him. Mm-hmm. And if they have the coaching staff, this is what we can develop him into. And I think a prime example was Dontari Poe with the Chiefs. And they just developed him into one of the best interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL. I don't know if Justin Jones will be Dontari Poe.
Yeah.
He has the physical tools to be one of the best interior defensive linemen going forward in the entire NFL.
And when you do that, you get a guy you save a lot of money potentially as a team because you get a guy with potential to be a first-round talent who maybe just not as developed as a player, but you're paying him for the rate of a third-round pick, So you can get someone cheaper, build them up into the player you want them to be, and then they work for your system because they've grew up in your system. So I agree with you. I think that's also another good pick for them. I really like the pick of Derwin James, a safety from Florida State. You've seen a lot of comparisons from him to Cam Chancellor from Seattle, just because of his size and his speed and his ability to attack the ball too. Last season, he had 2 sophomore seasons. So last season, in 2017, he had 49 solo tackles, 35 assisted tackles for a total of 85 total, coming as a safety. So, again, a guy who likes to come up and make tackles. He actually had 5.5 tackles for loss and 1 sack. So if you ever run a package like a safety blitz or something like that, he can be your guy to come up and do that. But he's also super versatile. He can come up and play in the nickelback position, or if you want him to play outside linebacker or something like that, you can really move him all over the field just because of his size. So I think that's another good pickup for them.
Yeah, he's a specimen athletically.
Yeah.
I remember we saw him on draft night. We were talking about, it's obviously a no jam situation, but we were talking about damn, that is just one great body that he has on him.
No,
no jam.
He's gonna be a stud, I think.
Yeah. Oh, you'd almost assume so too, because I think it's easier for safeties to play when they have other great cornerbacks around them.
Yeah.
You saw the Legion of Boom have it, and I think he's definitely a guy that's going to benefit greatly from having, played with Verrett and Hayward.
Yep. One thing that nothing's come out of this yet, but it's still, on the table for all of the Chargers to worry about, is Antonio Gates' free agency this year. What do you think? Do you think them signing Virgil Green, the tight end from Denver, kind of hints towards the fact that Antonio Gates might be leaving this year?
Yeah, there was some news on it, earlier in the offseason about Antonio Gates didn't pick up the option from the Chargers, or the Chargers didn't give him the player option to pick up. Something along those lines. I don't know. He's old, and you know that, but he's still fairly productive for being as old as he is.
Yeah,
and this has been a Charger through and through. It'd honestly be a shame to see him anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because he's just one of those guys who you grew up, you watch this great tight end playing for them. He's a household name to a lot of NFL fans.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I'd compare it to Jason Witten.
I was about to say the same thing.
Going and playing anywhere else, it just wouldn't look right. So if this doesn't get picked up, I'm kind of hoping Antonio Gates just retires, because
that's what I'm hoping too.
Man, it'd just be weird. And I think that Virgil Green signing, I think that might hint a little bit more towards the negative side.
Yeah. Well, it's not like Antonio Gates has anything left to prove, he's been in the league for 15 years. He's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Right. This is a top tight end all time.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best all time, but certainly one of the top.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. When they talk about, for a Hall of Fame, people get voted in the Hall of Fame, it's the type of person who, if you were going to tell the whole story of the NFL, you would have to mention this person. I think you have to mention Antonio Gates at the tight end position at least.
Yeah. And that was, the tight end position was really not one of a whole lot of prominence before guys like Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jason Witten came in and started catching all these passes.
Yeah.
Put monster numbers. So I think he's also really revolutionized an entire position group, really, with his play. Him and Tony G and Witten, like we said. So
yeah. No, I think, I don't know. I'm hoping, if anything, he stays in San Diego, but if he's not going to, I hope he just retires. What do you have their final record at?
I think the Chargers, I think this is the year that the rest of the division is kind of, I don't want to say weak. I don't want to say it's a weak division.
At their level.
I want to say that it's a division that's, a division that's competitive, but it's a division that an unlucky team like them could actually compete in. I have them going 10-6 too. It's the same record as the Chiefs. Some might say it's a cop-out to have two first-place teams, so I didn't really pick a winner. But, I just going through the schedule, I thought 10-6 for both them and the Chiefs. I don't know how the tiebreakers work. I probably have them splitting it home and home, one in the series that they play against each other. So, who knows? 10-6 is usually good enough to get you into the postseason, but for an unlucky Chargers team,
we don't know.
Yeah,
I've also got them going 10-6, but finishing second in the AFC West, just behind the Chiefs. So I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic about this Chargers team. Like we talked about, their defense is very good, and as you know, that's what it takes to win in the NFL is a solid defense. You can't just pull a TCU or Baylor and try to outscore the other team. You really do need to be able to stop the run, stop the pass. So let's move on to the Oakland Raiders. This is their last year in Oakland, right? Or do they have one more?
I don't know. They're talking about going to Vegas. I have no idea when they're actually doing that.
I don't know. We'll call it their last year for now, and then if we're wrong, it was prank. What do you got looking forward to for Oakland this season?
Derek Carr. It's not often that a Chiefs fan gets to talk positive about the Raiders, but there's going to be a lot of positivity here when I talk about Derek Carr, because I really respect this guy as a quarterback. I really respect this man as a competitor. Last season, the lasting image of Derek Carr was his fumble against Oakland into the end zone that lost that game on Sunday night. You saw him over there on the sidelines. He was mad. He felt like he lost it for his team. Just
kind of like Tim Tebow.
Yeah, he's a really competitive guy. He kind of doesn't have the reputation of Tebow as being that ultra competitor, but last season, you can tell just by the way he talked after games, talks in interviews in this offseason, that his performance last season wasn't what he came to expect from himself. In 2016, he had 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible rate. Last year, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, which we saw a lot of guys kind of regress to that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of regress that touchdown interception ratio.
Like Dak Prescott.
He put a lot. Yes, like Prescott. He put a lot of it on himself.
Mm-hmm. And
I think that he's going to come out. He's going to try to play so much better this year. He's going to play so hard, and you get excited to see guys.
He's a great guy. You'd want to be teammates with this guy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's a great team leader, especially for being so young.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy you just look forward to seeing him play football.
Oh, for sure.
And even though you don't wish the best for the Raiders, you wish the best for guys like this.
Yeah.
Because he is such a true competitor.
Yeah. The one thing that I am really looking forward to with the Raiders is, I tell you what, man, John Gruden is coming back to coaching football, and I absolutely love it. John Gruden is by far one of my favorite coaches. You know, whenever the draft would come out, I always watch the Gruden's QB camp. I think he has one of the best football minds in the country. Like, I think he's one of the best, talent scouts. Like, he has the best eye for talent, especially coming out of the draft. You know, every time I watch his QB camp, and he'll pull a guy aside, like, he predicted Dak Prescott. When Prescott went to QB camp, he's like, this guy is going to be the dude. You know, he's got the mindset, he's got the talent. You know, he was, a fourth-round draft pick, but John Gruden was like, no, you guys need to pay attention to this guy. He's going to be something special, and we all saw what happened his rookie year. So, I don't know, John Gruden he's an electric coach. He looks like the doll Chucky, so super intimidating to look at him on the sidelines. But I don't know, I'm super excited for him to come back.
Yeah, I think ours go hand in hand because you match a quarterback who has all that passion for football.
Yeah.
You match, I don't know if John Gruden's passion for football can be matched by anybody.
No.
And so you pair those two, and that's going to be an electric factory in Oakland or Vegas or wherever they're playing on the road.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that makes me very sad about the Oakland Raiders is their running back position. When Marshawn Lynch came back to Oakland, I was super stoked to see him come back. You know, I love Marshawn in Seattle. He just really didn't live up to all the hype that he promised coming back. You know, he wasn't the same Marshawn that we saw running over guys against the Saints and, jumping backward into the end zone. He didn't perform the same as he could, and then you start to think, maybe there's a reason he had those couple years off that really hurt him. So, I don't know. They don't really have any other stud running backs as well. So, that's something that they think they need to look into for this next season.
Yeah, they're pretty much, that's a running back retirement home right now with Lynch, and they picked up Doug Martin, who's coming off of his worst seasons of his career. Yeah, that running back position, I think, definitely needs to be, that's a huge point of emphasis because, you're still unsure if Lynch will even come back to play this season.
Yeah.
You're unsure about how much Doug Martin can give you. So then you're looking at the starting running back saying, you might go with Jalen Richard or DeAndre Washington as a starting running back. And so that strikes those names, they're not bad players, but
they don't jump off the paper.
No, they don't strike any fear in the defense's hearts of the AFC West.
No.
So, I think that's something that I agree the Raiders definitely need to look into. Yeah, it's almost going to be like a 70 to 30 pass to run ratio.
It's going to have to be, yeah.
Right.
And that sucks because then teams know, all right, they don't have a strong running back, so we're just going to maybe take off some of the pressure off the run game and just focus on shutting down the pass. And then what are you going to do if you're Derek Carr? When they've got your guys covered all day.
Yeah, no, and maybe one of those Raiders running backs will bust onto the scene. Maybe they pick up a guy late who gets cut from another team and him into a star like Deion Lewis did in New England. But
you gotta hope so if you're an Oakland fan.
Oh yeah, because right now that's the position that you're looking at, and you say, I just have no idea. What we're doing here.
What do you think they need to focus on other than that for this next season, or what are you weary of?
It's kind of just them being the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about, is kind of the Chargers just being the Chargers, being that unlucky team. The Raiders are they're just the Raiders, there's not a whole lot to say about them.
Yeah.
They lose winnable games. A lot of times it's penalties, boneheaded mistakes that cost themselves games. I think a lot of it's them getting out of their own way because you look at a lot of the groups that they have, just position groupings, and you say there's a lot of talent on this team. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of them putting the talent together. I think they got a tremendous coach to help do so.
Yep.
Still a little bit weary of the defensive backfield because there's still some questions there. You don't know exactly how Garyon Conley will perform. He was the rookie last year. Or Obi Melifonwu from Connecticut. You still have questions about the defensive backfield, but all in all, I think that the Raiders are set up for success in the future as they learn more under Gruden. But right now, it's just getting out of their own way. That's gonna be the next step for them.
One thing that is kind of exciting for them, a free agent they picked up this last offseason was Jordy Nelson. You know, that's a pretty good target to give to Derek Carr. You know, coming from Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, he was definitely Aaron Rodgers' most favorite target to throw to.
Yeah, absolutely. Great route runner.
Yep.
And I think this is where it gets a little bit, or it's not, it might be a controversial statement for myself. I would say picking up Jordy Nelson and losing Michael Crabtree almost does nothing for the receiving core.
Yeah,
There's
it's kind of a
almost
wash.
no change there.
Yeah.
And Michael Crabtree, I mean, this is a guy who caught for 2,500 yards and 25 touchdowns
He's a stud.
in 3 years for you. You look at him and Amari Cooper, and Crabtree was by far more consistent than Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
You know, and you just never know. They just don't have that running game, like you said. I think Jordy Nelson, was he a product of Aaron Rodgers' greatness?
Yeah.
That's also something to be seen because he did relatively nothing with Hundley at quarterback last year.
True.
I like the pickup. If you're going to lose Crabtree, you've got to at least get somebody of near equal talent. But I'm not sure how much Jordy Nelson will actually affect the Raiders.
Yeah, no, I think it's about a wash. But if you're going to lose, like you said, if you're going to lose Michael Crabtree, you got to find someone to replace him. And I think this is probably one of the best replacements you'd find for him.
Right. In terms of free agent receivers, it's going to get much better since you probably lost the best free agent receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. What did you think of their draft this year, though?
So, first round, I thought they had the worst individual pick in the first round because they took an offensive lineman who was projected to go late first round, early second round. Mm-hmm. They took him at pick number 15, which I thought was a bit high for them. I think that the offensive line is somewhere where, you know, every team needs improvement on the line. Mm-hmm. You'd always like to see a better line. But Colton Miller's kind of a project guy, and so I think taking him 15th overall was a little bit too much. Yeah. So from that aspect, I don't think they had a tremendous draft. And then that all changed on day 3. They took Maurice Hurst. And I was very adamant about this on draft day. We had our draft podcast with No Knowledge come out. And I was very adamant on this. Maurice Hurst fell to the 5th round because people are afraid of the heart condition that he has. Yep. Which, grant you, it can be serious. But it did not affect how many games he played at Michigan. Never missed a game. The issue never came up while he was playing at Michigan. It was only found when he went through that extensive testing, during the combine process. Mm-hmm. And Pro Football Focus rated this guy as the best defensive lineman since they started rating defensive linemen on this scale, just overall performance. So this was a first-round talent, and they got him in the 5th round, 140th overall.
Mm-hmm. That's a steal.
It's unreal how far this guy fell. Absolutely unreal. Maurice Hurst, he'll make that Raiders roster. He'll probably start for them. I wouldn't be surprised if in 3-4 years he's going to his 2nd or 3rd Pro Bowl. Yeah. Because he has that kind of talent level. And they just picked him up in the 5th round, and I was really upset on draft night that so many teams were afraid to take this guy. Mm-hmm. Now that he's ended up with the Raiders, he's got a huge chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got a lot to prove now coming out of that.
Yeah, him, and then my other boy, Marcel Aitman, who got drafted 7th round. Yep. Despite being one of the taller, more athletic receivers in the entire draft, gets picked 7th. So I think day 3, the Raiders got some absolute steals. They got some guys that I can definitely cheer for. Yeah. But I think a very up-and-down draft for Oakland. Yep. As a whole.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Another thing kind of notable to talk about them, it's going to be super weird to see the Raiders without Seabass, Sebastian Janikowski. He's just been, for so long, he was the only good thing about the Raiders. So to see him not on the team anymore is going to be super weird.
He'll always remember his time of eating contests with Jamarcus Russell fondly there.
This is a guy that, he could be a Hall of Famer, which as a kicker is super impressive.
I think he'll be a Hall of Famer. Yeah. When it's all said and done, he's got the big leg. People love fat kickers. Mm-hmm. He's not going to get any skinnier moving up to Seattle.
Nope, no way.
Just a bunch of donuts and coffee up there. It's going to be super weird to see him. And the Raiders used to have that special teams combo of Seabass and Marquette King.
Yeah, now they're both gone.
You're like, wow, like these guys are the exact opposite person, but they're so exciting to watch on the field. Now they're both gone, and now they're both going to have just these bland kickers.
Yeah.
This bland punter.
That's so fun to watch. What do you think their final record's going to be?
I have them going 7-9 to finish third in the AFC West. I don't think it's going to be a bad year, but like I said, they still have to learn to get out of their own way. Mm-hmm. I think Derek Carr's competitive drive, I think that John Gruden's competitive drive will help keep them at least in conversation for a long time for, maybe a wild card postseason berth, stuff like that. I just don't see them getting over the hill this first year, but this is definitely a team to watch.
Yeah,
down the road.
Agree. I've got them going 8-8, sitting exactly 500, maybe getting into like a wild card spot or something, but I've got them also finishing third in the AFC West. So, like you said, there's just a lot of kind of unknowns with them, a lot of not so great moves by them either. So, we'll see what happens. But I am, like you said, cheering for Derek Carr to do well, and Maurice Hurst for sure.
No, there's a lot of individual guys that I really like on the Raiders. I just wish they weren't on the Raiders.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. That'll do it for the AFC West recap this week. We'll move into some NCAA news here. We couldn't really find a whole lot of news that coming out this week, kind of a dead week, but there is something kind of cool for us to talk about. Tight end Clayton Wilson was signed to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this guy is from Toby and I's college, where we attend right now, Northwestern Missouri State. So it's pretty cool to see a guy from a D2 school, go off and try to make an NFL career. The dude's been chasing his dreams for a long time now. He's a small town kid. I can't remember exactly where he's from, but I know it's a town of like less than 10,000. So it's cool to see a kid like that come out, make an impact on arguably one of the best D2 schools in the last 10 years, I guess. Go out and make a name for himself in the NFL.
I think there ain't no debate there. OWABAB, best D2 school, football school in the past decade or so.
Yeah.
Very exciting for him. Seahawks fans get excited. Luke Wilson out at tight end, bringing Clayton Wilson. You still got that Wilson to Wilson connection. Mm-hmm. And now this guy spells his name correctly, 1 L instead of 2.
Yep.
Huge upgrade, Seahawks. Huge upgrade.
Yeah, so good luck to Clayton out there. We'll be looking forward to seeing you do well up in Seattle. But let's get into our favorite teams. So last week we broke down the quarterback situations for our teams. Now let's look at the running back situations. You want to kick it off with Oklahoma State?
Yes, sir. So last week we talked about all the uncertainty at quarterback for the Cowboys. This week we talked about the most solidified position on the team. Our best player, Justice Hill, will be spearheading the backfield. He was a guy who was kind of overshadowed last year because you had James Washington who won the Biletnikoff. You got Mason Rudolph, who was one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football. Marcel Aitman, a guy who was drafted this year as a receiver. Chris Lacey goes to the pros. But Justice Hill, last year on a pass-first offense, had 245 carries for 1,347 yards and 14 rush touchdowns. He's an explosive back. He has breakaway speed. He makes great cuts. He's going to be one of the best running backs in the entire country this year. And it also helps that he plays in the Big 12 conference where they don't have a lot of defense at all. And then behind him, you've got very capable freshman J.D. King, who in his first season had 97 carries, 466 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It's probably going to be our best position grouping next year, the running back position. It'll be a lot different to not see so many, 40, 50-yard passes.
Yeah.
See a lot more 10 to 15-yard runs in the offense, but hey, I'm looking forward to it. I'm expecting Justice Hill to have a great year. I'm just hoping it's not, Barry Sanders level great, so that he'll come back for his senior year. Yeah, we actually have our back situation all figured out.
Just good enough to get him back the next year. That's kind of what you're hoping for there. Yeah, so the Nebraska Cornhuskers are literally in the exact opposite position, where you've got your running back kind of nailed down. It's so confusing for us. We have so many guys. It's a really good problem to have because we do have a lot of talented running backs. Like we have a plethora of guys who I would trust getting the ball in the backfield, but we have so many that it's hard to really nail down who's going to be the guy this next year. Last year, even there was some running back controversy of who was going to get the start and who was going to play the backup role. Trey Bryant, the sophomore, ended up winning out the position. He's a very explosive running back. He's at full speed in probably 2 to 3 steps. Come right out of the gates. He's super fast, but he also is not afraid to run through people, which is the type of back like you like to see. He's not going to do a lot of dancing in the backfield. If there's no hole, he'll try to make his own. So he ended up winning the position last year, played in 1.5 games, and then went down with a season-ending knee injury. So you hate to see that, but he will be back this season, so that's a plus. Devine Ozigbo and Mikhail Wilbon saw most of the snaps last year. They'll both be juniors this year. Those guys have a lot of experience coming this season. They're a little bit older. They have more game experience total, but they just didn't have kind of the explosiveness that Trey Bryant had. But they were very good running backs in their own accords. They have very good vision. They're both able to kind of run through people. Maybe not as much as the Trey Bryant. He's a super strong kid, but they both definitely made very positive impacts on the field last year. And even Jalen Bradley, who was a true freshman last year, showed a lot of signs of promise. He got in a few snaps at running back and played a lot of special teams as well, even returned a few punts. He's from Omaha, which is something I like to see too, a Nebraska kid coming in and making an impact right away. But he's one of those kids who I think by his junior year, I think he's going to be a stud. I think he's going to be super good. He's just a little underdeveloped right now, but definitely shows a lot of signs that he's going to do well in this system. Also added to this year's roster is the JUCO All-American Greg Bell, who had a fantastic spring game. He was one of those guys going into the spring game, everyone was kind of like, all right, we kind of need to see how this guy plays because, JUCO All-American, you're playing against really good talent, but you're not at the D1 level yet, so you want to see how he's going to play against that kind of talent. And then we also have the Under Armour All-American Game MVP, Maurice Washington. So, like I said, it's super up in the air right now. I can see every single one of these running backs getting a lot of snaps in the backfield. So, I don't know. I think it's going to come down to the first couple of games. We'll have some sort of rotation and get as many of those guys in as we can. Maybe throw like Maurice Washington or Jalen Bradley in on some special teams, see how they do there. By the third or fourth game, I'm hoping to have it nailed down to be who's our guy. Maybe we'll go running back by committee and have, Trey Bryant, Ozigbo, and Greg Bell kind of do some sort of rotation.
Now, do you think that previous experience will affect the running back situation at all since you have a brand new head coach?
I think it'll affect it a little bit because, experience is always good at the collegiate level, Being able to know where and how holes will develop with your offensive linemen, having that, kind of trust and connection with your offensive linemen as well, where you know where they're going to make blocks and how they're going to make blocks and who's better and you know what I mean, stuff like that. I think that definitely is going to help, but I don't know, like you said, it's a brand new coach, brand new system. And the system is a very fast tempo, fast-paced system, so we'll probably see a lot of passes coming out of this and a lot of option runs. So I think whatever running back best fits that system with their style of running will win out the position. So we'll have to wait and see kind of how that goes after the first couple games. Now, what's going on in Michigan?
Michigan's also a place where we have rotation is sort of set for them. At least as a fan, you'd assume so. Mm-hmm. Karan Higdon was one of the best running backs in the Big Ten last year. And he's joined by Chris Evans, not Erica, but Michigan running back Chris Evans.
Okay, good to note.
They're a formidable duo, those two. Karan Higdon really bust onto the scenes. And Chris Evans was a guy who wasn't highly recruited, came to Michigan, shocked a lot of people when he beat out some really, really highly rated recruits to get a lot of playing time his freshman year. And now they're very consistent backs. They'll be seeing a lot of the ball. I think we're going to try to go to more of a ground and pound sort of game, very pro-style offense. Last season, throwing the ball just did not work very well. Nope. I know we have Shea Patterson this year at quarterback, so that'll certainly help. But I think we want to get the ball in the hands of some of our more talented players, and I think these guys are two of the most talented players on the team. And after them, we've got Kareem Walker, who was the second-ranked running back coming out of high school 2 years ago. Omori Samuels, who was a top 100 player and was a top 10 running back. And Kurt Taylor, who was a top 10 running back in this year's recruiting class. So there's a lot of talent behind Higdon and Evans, who are two of the more lightly recruited guys. But I'm not expecting a whole lot of snaps for anybody outside of Karan and Chris this year. I think they'll have massive years. Last year, Higdon needed just a few more yards to eclipse that 1,000-yard mark.
Yeah.
I think we would have been one of the few teams in the country that had a 1,000-yard rusher, and then 2 more 500-yard rushers in the entire country. So it's a solid position at Michigan, and you just never know with Harbaugh, like who's going to play, how many snaps they're going to get in a particular game. So there'll be one week where Chris Evans will get 20 carries, the next week he'll get 6 or 7. So
now, how important do you think the running game is going to be into your offensive system next year when you do have a quarterback like Shea Patterson? Do you think you're going to focus like more of your offense around the passing game, or do you still think you're going to focus a lot of it on the running game?
I think last year we had almost no passing game.
Yeah.
It was easy for teams to stack the box, to send pressure, and kind of rattle young quarterbacks who hadn't gotten in, or O'Korn, who's just
not good.
He tried hard, but yeah, he's
Plus
just
it's hard.
O'Korn. Yeah. But this year, I think each of them is going to complement each other really, really well, because I think now you can't overlook the passing game. I think that play-action passing is going to improve. Huge. Oh, absolutely, and Harbaugh loves the play-action pass. Absolutely loves it. So, I think having those two guys coming back, our 2 leading rushers from last season come back, the running game will probably be featured really, really prominently against some of the better defenses. From there, it's just, how is Shea playing that day? How are the receivers doing? That's going to be a huge for us, because he can make all the throws if our receivers get open. But right now, you'd say those are the 2 best skill position guys, or Higdon and Evans. We'll kind of just see how the season progresses. Yeah. That's an offense that has some things to figure out. But.
Yeah, for sure. Keeping on the running back theme here, let's go ahead and break down our top 10 running backs from the NCAA. I picked 5, you picked 5. I'll get started, actually. My number 1 is pretty obvious one, Bryce Love coming out of Stanford. Runner-up for the Heisman. Last year he had just an incredible year. He had a record-breaking 13 rushes for over 50 yards last season, which is an FBS record. We also rushed for 2,118 yards and 36 what they call explosive plays, which are plays of 15 yards or more. So a lot of expectations coming back for this guy. It's going to happen when you're the runner-up for the Heisman. Especially Stanford fans are going to expect him to win the Heisman this year. So we'll see if he can live up to the hype. Maybe some teams will key in on him, but I think he's a phenomenal athlete, and I'm excited to see what he does this next year.
Hard to beat that, and I don't think this guy does, but I'm going with Damian Harris from Alabama. We talked about last week Bo Scarborough not necessarily getting as many touches as he wanted to, and I think Damian Harris is the reason for that. This is a guy who, a super, super efficient runner at Alabama. He sees the holes, he hits the holes, he just makes smart plays when he runs the football. He's not going to get tackled for negative yardage.
Yep.
And on 110 carries last year, he had 906 yards, which is a tremendous average. Yep. He had 11 touchdowns. And it's an offense where they spread the ball around to a lot of different guys. A lot of running backs will touch it. Even this year, they've got a great running back, Najee Harris, who's going to be waiting. But I think that Damian Harris is going to be one of the top running backs off the board next year in the NFL draft. He's going to be a key cog on that Alabama offense again. And I'm expecting him to have a massive season.
Yeah, no, me too. Nick Saban really, really knows how to utilize his running backs correctly. If they're a big dude like Bo Scarborough, he likes to pound the ball down like 3rd and 1 positions. But if there's a guy like Damian Harris, he can utilize him in tons of different ways. So it's exciting to see what he's going to do with him this next year. My number 2 running back, I've got Jonathan Taylor coming out of Wisconsin. His freshman year stats from last year, he had almost 2,000 rushing yards. He had 1,977 yards on 299 attempts, which averages out to be about 6.6 yards per carry and 13 touchdowns. So Wisconsin is one of those very typical Big Ten teams where it's, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, punt, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, punt. And he's going to be the guy getting all those runs. So I think they're looking to not have to punt very, very often this next year and just kind of see how far he can take them.
I like that. I'm also going with the young guy. He was a freshman last year, A.J. Dillon from Boston College. Definitely a guy that flies under the radar because of where he goes to school. But last year he carried the ball 268 times for 1,432 yards and 13 touchdowns.
Yep.
But 6 of his last 7 games, when he started to get the ball more consistently, he became the primary back. 6 of his last 7 games, he finished with over 150 rushing yards, and that included a game where they played Louisville, and obviously Louisville had Lamar Jackson. Boston College beat Louisville. A.J. Dillon, 270 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game against a defense that had guys drafted this year in the NFL. He had a monster bowl game, too, against Iowa in the Pinstripe Bowl. Boston College, very, very low-key, produces a lot of really...
I like Boston College a lot.
A lot of eye-boggling rushing numbers.
Yeah. Mind-boggling.
So, mind-boggling.
Traps all your thoughts like in a bottle. My number 3, I got David Montgomery out of Iowa State. He's a very, very dependable running back. Last season he had 1,146 yards, but the biggest stat that I really like about him is he's made 110 missed tackles. So he refuses to go down on first contact, many times even on second contact. You're going to have to bring the whole defense really to take him down. So if you've got a running back in a system where you really focus on the run game, that's huge because he's guaranteed at least 3 or 4 yards because he's not going down after that first hit. So that's something you really, really like to see coming out of a running back.
No, we watched the game against Memphis. He played that game. There was one play I remember where he broke 2 tackles in the backfield, cut it all the way back across the field, and broke more tackles before picking up an extra 20 yards.
He just makes plays where there isn't one. He's going to make things happen when he shouldn't.
Very tough runner.
Yeah. Who you got number 3?
My 3rd. Yeah, I originally went with Justice Hill from Oklahoma State, and I do believe he's one of the top 10 running backs in the country. I decided to switch it up. We already talked about him. So I'm actually going with an in-state rival, Rodney Anderson. He was a young guy last year. He played in that really up-tempo offense that featured Baker Mayfield throwing the ball all over the field. And he quietly amassed 162 carries, 960 yards, and 11 rushing touchdowns. All of those numbers expect him to go well up this season as they replace Baker Mayfield with more of a run-first quarterback. A lot of option plays. I think that Rodney Anderson's going to be a guy at the end of the year that we're looking at as one of the leading rushers in the entire country. And unfortunately, probably going to be one of the best backs in the country too. So, not very often Oklahoma gets a shout-out, but that one's for you, Zach. Rodney Anderson. Book it. One of the top 10 backs.
Moving on from that, my number 4, I've got Devin Singletary from Florida Atlantic University. Plays under Lane Kiffin, who's another guy I hate in football. He's just total douchebag, but he's a really good coach. He had an incredibly successful season last year at Florida Atlantic, and a lot of that comes from Devin Singletary's success. He had 32 touchdowns and averaged over 6.38 yards per carry. So, that's just an incredible season for someone to have 32 touchdowns in 13 games, or 12 or 13 games if they played a bowl game. So I don't know. That's going to be another thing to look forward this next season to see if teams in the American Conference are going to be like, we should definitely single in on this guy because he can obviously make some things happen where other guys haven't been able to in the past.
And that's interesting too because the first game of the season is Florida Atlantic and Oklahoma. So the 2 running backs you just mentioned going at it.
That'll be a good game.
Absolutely. A real duel there because neither of those teams plays defense either.
Yeah.
My 4th, I went with Myles Gaskin, the senior running back from Washington. We talked last week, too, about Jake Browning, and we talked about his touchdown numbers being down. I think that part of that is due to the fact that Myles Gaskin last year, while running for a little less than 1,300 yards, scored 19 rushing touchdowns. He also added 3 receiving touchdowns. And this year, after Washington lost their top receiver, Dante Pettis, in the NFL draft, Myles Gaskin now becomes even more of a go-to guy in that offense. Probably expect to see him catching more passes out of the backfield. More touches, too, on the ground. And I think that he's going to have another tremendous year because you've still got to respect Jake Browning's ability. But Myles Gaskin, probably a running back that will definitely get drafted in the 2019 NFL draft.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, just a real stud, and you like to see a guy have a successful senior year, and I think he definitely have one.
Yeah. My last running back that I've got here in our top 10 is Darrell Henderson from Memphis. But last season, he had a very, very good season with 1,154 yards, averaging 8.9 yards per carry. When you can give it to your running back and almost get a first down every single time he touches the ball, That's super impressive to come out and see that. They expect him to get a lot more touches next year as well, since they're kind of losing their quarterback position. But I know this guy's total workhorse, very explosive, and it'll be exciting to see what he does this next season as well.
And they lost Riley Ferguson, like you said. This is going to be a guy that gets the ball even more than he usually got.
Yeah.
If he continues with that 9 yards per carry pace,
yeah, that's incredible.
The records are going to be under assault.
Yeah.
I've got another guy who ran for almost 9 yards per carry last season, DeAndre Swift. He's the running back out of Georgia. He'll get the start this year. He's a true freshman last year behind the best duo of running backs in the entire country with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. But, in very limited time, he had 73 carries for almost 600 yards. He had 3 touchdowns on the season. But he played in big-time games. You saw him get snaps in the national championship, the Rose Bowl. His big moment came in the SEC title game. He had 7 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown against Auburn, including probably the most iconic moment from that game, the put-away touchdown, put-away 60-yard run at the end of the game. So this is a guy definitely next year who's going to be getting a bulk of the snaps. Very fast. On-field speed is a lot different from time speed when you're running a 40.
Yep.
And this guy has football speed and then some. He's going to be a very effective back next year. He'll be at Georgia for not just next season, but the season after that too.
They're set for a while.
Yeah, very, very frightening for SEC defenses with him and Damian Harris still kicking.
For my overrated running back, I've got Mike Weber from Ohio State. Second week in a row, I've picked a team that I hate as my overrated, so I might be a little biased. But he saw a lot fewer carries in 2017 than he did in 2016. Part of that due to a hamstring injury, but another part of that due to J.K. Dobbins coming out and splitting time with him in the backfield. And J.K. Dobbins is a very good running back as well, so a lot of people are thinking he's going to take over more of the running back position this year from Mike Weber, which, whatever. I don't like either one of them, so I don't really care who plays back there. But Mike Weber is still ranked as like one of the top 15 running backs for this next year, and I really don't see it, especially if J.K. Dobbins can come up here and take his position from him. But we'll have to see what happens after this next year.
I, as a Michigan fan, have to agree with you on all points.
Yeah.
Mike Weber, for sure, overrated. Stings, he's a Michigan kid. He's from Detroit. Pitt chose to go to Ohio, so I'm not mad at him for getting his spot stolen.
Went to the dark side.
But yeah, my overrated running back, I've just got a guy who a lot of prospects are picking to be one of the running backs taken next year's NFL draft.
Yeah.
That is Jordan Scarlett from Florida. Scarlett, he was part of that mess that Florida had last year. He didn't get to play in any games. He was suspended all season. It's not necessarily the back that he is. It's the fact that so many people are so high on this guy.
Yeah.
He's a year removed from playing any game action. And in the season he played, he wasn't a 1,000-yard rusher. He didn't have double-digit touchdowns. And there's so many good running backs this year. We just listed off a whole bunch, and there's a whole bunch more really good running backs. I don't necessarily see him as one of these top running backs in the country like a lot of people are slating him to be. Hopefully for Florida's sake, who, they really struggle with quarterback play, hopefully he proves me wrong. I wish him a good season, but as of right now, you cannot call him one of the best running backs in the country on the fact that you haven't seen him play enough to be one of the best running backs in the country.
Yeah, I agree with you there. For my underrated running back, this is kind of the opposite side of it. It's weird to say that a running back from Florida State is underrated, especially some of the stats he put up. But I've got Cam Akers as my underrated running back. Last year, Florida State had just a real terrible year. But he still ran for 1,024 yards, which averages to 5.3 yards per carry and 7 touchdowns. But people forget he had just an abysmal offensive line that he was running behind. This was literally all on his own when he got all these yards and all these touchdowns. Because the line was just plagued with injuries, and the guys who were there just flat out couldn't play well. They couldn't move their feet, and they couldn't stick on their blocks. So a lot of this was done literally by him just kind of making his own holes, making his own runs, and kind of putting the team on his back, really.
And remember, their starting quarterback was out all season.
Yeah.
So another key threat where guys couldn't load the box, beef up on the run. Now the offense is going to be more spread out. The defense is going to be, they'll have to be more weary of the pass. I'm expecting monster numbers from him. He was the number one running back coming out of high school, or last season's recruiting class. I'm expecting big things from Akers as well. This was really hard to pick an underrated running back because there's so many. Honorable mention, Benny Snell from Kentucky, who is just an absolute monster. Just plays at Kentucky, so you don't hear about him.
Yeah.
But for my underrated running backs, I'm going to probably one of the least underrated teams in the country. I'm going to Clemson for their dynamic duo of the backfield with Travis Etienne and Tavian Feaster, who are also members of the all-name team for running backs. But last year, they both got exactly 103 carries. I think Dabo Swinney did that on purpose. He's a guy who likes that fun. They accounted for 20 touchdowns. So 1 of every 10 times they touched the ball, it was a touchdown for Clemson.
Yeah.
Very effective. It's a backfield that didn't get a whole lot of talk because you lost so many guys from that team that won the national championship with Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. You know, with your running back Wayne Gallman going, and these guys really stepped in. You know, Eddie was a true freshman.
Yeah.
And I think that youth mixed with Dabo Swinney's coaching ability, some very good quarterbacks, not just now. Kelly Bryant is the quarterback of now, but Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be the quarterback of the future at Clemson. I think they're set up really, really well for years to come. I think I would not be surprised, honestly, this year if both of those guys got double-digit touchdowns and we're approaching 30 combined rushing touchdowns as a pair. These are guys that don't get a whole lot of talk, but, man, you just got to watch for them all year because
lots to look forward to.
When it's all said and done, they'll be there.
Well, that'll do it for episode 2 of First and 10 podcast. We thank you guys for listening. Make sure to give Nosebleed Knowledge a follow on Twitter at NosebleedsKnow and on Facebook just Nosebleed Knowledge. And we will leave you this football quote of the week. This really, really sets a testament to the Ohio State education. We got Bob Hoying, the former Ohio State quarterback, after winning the Big Ten title, said, you know, I'm really happy for Coach Cooper and the guys who've been around here for 6 or 7 years, especially our seniors. So maybe take another math class, Bob. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
Well, it's Monday night and we're ready to strike. Our special forces are in full flight. We're coming by air and on the ground. Monday Night Football's taking over the town. We gotta get ready. We gotta get right. It's gonna be a battle in the NFL tonight. So get ready. I mean, get ready. Are you ready for football? On Monday night invasion. Yeah, this is Rockin' Randall Hank with a special alert for the nation. Here come the hits, the bangs, the blocks, and the spikes. 'Cause all my rowdy friends drop in on Monday night time. Let it fly, boy.
This is our finest hour.
Well, sir, this usually takes about 3 hours.